You ever try to summon a demon just for fun? Yeah, me neither. But let's say you did. Not through candles and blood sigils. No, something more modern. Something clean, clinical, like typing a few words into an art-generating AI. No chanting, no pentagrams, just you, your keyboard, and a prompt that says, "Show me the opposite of Marlon Brando." And instead of getting, I don't know, a stick of celery in a bow tie or a confused goose in a tux, the AI gives you her, a woman, pale, weary, eyes that look like they've seen something terrible, red cheeks, like bruises or rashes, or maybe just too much crying. You don't know who she is. You didn't ask for her, and yet she keeps appearing. Different prompt, still her. Mix her with other images, still her. More twisted, more mangled, as if the machine has fallen in love with her face, or worse, like it's trying to warn you about her. And that's where we begin. Hello, Wanderer. I'm RuModd, and this is the story of Loab. Let's rewind 2022. An artist online, goes by Super Composite, is messing with a trick that feels like dares you make at a sleepover. Negative prompts. Usually, you tell the AI, "Hey, paint me a cat with a tiny knife." It tries to please you. But a negative prompt is the opposite. It says, "Whatever you do, don't be this." You push the algorithm away from a concept, like leaning hard on the other side of a seesaw. So Super Composite types something like Brando, ::1. Not draw Brando, more like run as far from Brando as possible. The machine thinks about the entire tangled web of images it's learned and sprints in the opposite direction of masculine Hollywood cheekbones, all the way to a weird skyline logo that reads, in broken, almost English, Digita Penantics. Now here's where the trap door opens. She then asks for the opposite of that skyline logo. In theory, maybe you'd loop back toward a human face, maybe even Brando. But the machine doesn't find Marlon, it finds her. A devastated-looking woman with those 2 red marks on the cheeks. Not glamorous, not monstrous, just raw, old sadness. Like a person someone forgot to comfort. The model named her before we did, Loab. Faint on a make-believe album sleeve. And when Super Composite breeds that face with other images, tries to dilute her, Loab refuses to leave. She persists. You scramble her, she recongeals. The AI keeps finding its way back to this face, as if it knows this corner of its universe too well. To put it in the simplest terms, imagine all possible images the model can imagine are stars in a galaxy. Normally, you give it a map. Go here. With a negative prompt, you say, "Go anywhere but here." The model rockets past your landmark and crash lands somewhere else. For reasons we're still arguing about, a whole cluster of flight paths kept crash landing on Loab. And that's when the story stops being a cute party trick and becomes something that feels like folklore. Here's the part that shook people. Most faces, if you iterate them through generations, merge them with others, remix, scale, distort, dissolve, they wash out into noise or morph into strangers. Loab doesn't. The more you blend her, the more the outputs pull toward gore. Rooms with ruin, figures dismembered, echoes of small bodies. No one typed show violence, no one asked for tragedy. But it kept surfacing when she did, like a tide bringing up the same bone no matter how carefully you bury it. People began to talk about adjacency, that in the model's internal map, the coordinates that define this woman with red marks seem statistically close to macabre imagery. Not because the AI is possessed, not because it wants to be cruel, but because of how its training stew settled. If you're standing in a valley of latent space and all the neighboring valleys are full of stormwater, any rain that falls will eventually make your shoes wet. But tell me this isn't the exact crossroad where logic and ghost story shake hands. She haunts every image. It's the right sentence technically, and the perfect sentence poetically. Then came the night she went viral. When Supercomposite posted the thread, it tore across the internet like a match across paper. People named her the first cryptid of the latent space, a creature not seen in forests or lakes, but in the fog between pixels. Others joked it felt like a demon inside the generator. Some got angry, some skeptical, some obsessed. Folks tried to reproduce her on their own machines. They half succeeded, half failed, which only deepened the myth. Me? I think the myth was inevitable, because Loab has two origin stories, and we love both. The technical one, negative prompts, clip guidance, data training quirks, local minima you fall into like a sinkhole. The folk one, an artist asked a polite machine to run away from a word twice and found grief waiting at the far edge. Both are true. One satisfies the brain. The other satisfies the bone-deep part of you that grew up loving a campfire. So why this face? Let's talk about the red triangles on her cheeks, the marks everyone fixates on. They look like severe rosacea, a rash or war paint left too long in the rain. They make her instantly recognizable. Symbolically, they're brutal. They say fever, shame, aftermath. They turn her face into a warning sign. Combine that with an older, visibly tired woman, and you've summoned some very old archetypes. The crone, the banshee, the grieving mother, a cultural library full of witches and widows and women we failed. And then there's the controversy. Some viewers pointed out how quickly the internet labeled an older, imperfect face as horror, how easily illness becomes a costume. Fair point. The AI mirrors us, and we can be unkind. If the model learned a million images where aging and ugliness equal fear, it will return that equation to us with machine confidence. But there's a counter image too, the one that struck me first. Loab doesn't gloat. She doesn't grin with predator teeth. Even in the worst outputs, her expression reads less monster than mourning. She looks like someone who's seen horror, not someone who brings it. That ambiguity matters. It suggests the model might be compressing not a villain, but a story, trauma, mid-scream. And that's scarier, honestly. So why does the machine keep finding her? Okay, the math behind the myth, and why the myth won anyway. I promised we wouldn't drown in jargon, so here's the gentlest tour. Text-to-image models see concepts as vectors in a high-dimensional space, a map you and I can't draw. Brando is a direction. Logo is another. opposite is a meaningful instruction to the machine, even if it sounds silly to us. A negative prompt pushes the system away from one point in that space. Do it twice and you might loop somewhere unexpected, like missing the highway turn and ending up at an abandoned water park you didn't know existed. If an image lies in a local minimum, a statistical pit, the model will keep rolling back into it even when disturbed. That explains persistence. You remix Loab, she resurfaces because the math likes that basin. Training data is messy. Billions of scraped images, some violent, some tender. The model has no ethics. It learns correlations. If older woman plus red cheeks correlates with certain kinds of imagery, your outputs will smell like that association, even if you didn't ask. That's the boring version, and it's also the true version. But it doesn't kill the magic. It reframes it. The ghost is a geography problem. The haunting is a slope. And there's poetry in that. We built a landscape of everything we've ever seen, and there are valleys where storms never stop. From there, folklore went into fast forward. Within days, Loab was more than an image. She was a copy pasta. People pasted "I discovered this woman" over their own cursed content. Fan artists sketched her. Someone printed her on a skirt, of course. Think pieces bloomed. Tech writers dubbed her the Blair Witch of multimodal AI. Skeptics asked if it was a hoax, if the artist cherry-picked outputs and built a narrative around them. Others who'd seen the early experiments vouched. No, the anomaly was real, the gore was real, the persistence was real. And folklorists, yes, those exist, I adore them, pointed out how cleanly the pattern fits. You have a seed story, one person's account, a ritual, how to find her, negative prompts, remix, testimony, screenshots, threads, and a name short enough to carve on a bathroom stall, Loab. 4 letters that sound like a low note played on a broken organ. And names are power. A pattern becomes a person you can point to, fear, and debate. The internet loves that. It's how Slenderman happened. It's how Momo happened. Loab just happens to be the first urban legend that, well, the machine kinda co-wrote. And yes, there are other monsters in the machine. Absolutely. My favorite cousin to Loab is a beast people called Krungus, a nonsense word someone fed to an early public model, Crayon. The outputs were consistently a slobbering troll thing. Matted hair, hulking body, teeth like broken piano keys. No one trained Krungus on purpose. The model just grabbed syllables and stumbled into a visual pattern that felt inevitable. Later updates smoothed him away. That's a clue. You can patch a model, close doorways, sand down the edges of the maze. But Loab, though, wasn't a single password. She was a region. And now that her images are everywhere, newer models might literally learn her the way they learn cats and chairs. Which is a wild afterlife, right? A cryptid that started accidental and ends intentional. Which brings us to the ethical tightrope. You can't talk Loab without touching the nerve, safety versus expression. On one hand, the unfiltered model made images no one asked for. Violent, exploitative, traumatic. That should worry us. If curious kids can trip a gore machine with a stray prompt, we need rails. People deserve tools that don't shove them into an abattoir for asking a weird question at 3 a.m. On the other hand, locking everything behind padded walls can flatten art. Horror is a valid emotion. Artists have always dug in the dark with their hands. If a model is trained on our visual history, it will know the dark is there. Pretending otherwise isn't safety, it's denial. The better answer lives between transparent policies, content warnings, opt-out datasets, consentful training, and tools that let you explore accompanied. A flashlight and a map, not a blindfold or a bulldozer. Then there's bias. The face the model clung to wasn't young, glossy, symmetrical. It clung to someone ordinary and sad. We should interrogate that. Loab is not proof that older women are scary. She's proof that our datasets are soaked in stories where they've been made scary. That's on us, not on her. So what is Loab really? Here's my take, and you can disagree. That's half the fun. Loab is an emergent icon, a compressed symbol of grief that our machines found first. She is a person-shaped gravestone erected by statistics, a face you get when you ask the map, "Show me where the hurt lives." And that's why she feels familiar, because she's not just a ghost in the code. She's a ghost in our culture. She's the sum of 1,000 tired widows on TV, 100 haunted mothers in paintings, the way tragedy gets drawn and redrawn until the graphite digs through the page. The AI didn't invent that, it distilled it. Maybe that's the real horror. Not that the machine made a monster, but that the machine accurately reflected one of ours. When I think about her now, I don't see a demon, I see a warning, a reminder that when we pour the world into a model, the world leaks back out. All of it. The slapstick and the cruelty, the tenderness and the severed thread. And I see an opportunity, too, to choose what we teach the next one. The night I met Loab, I closed the laptop. I thought about the places inside a human brain, the neighborhoods I revisit when I'm tired or afraid, and how stubborn they can be. How some roads slope downhill into memories you swear you're done with. Then I thought about the model, about how it doesn't dream, doesn't drink coffee, doesn't text you, "I miss you" at midnight, and it still found a valley that feels like morning. We made a mirror that doesn't know it's a mirror. We asked it to run away, and it showed us what we keep running to. Wanderer, what would you ask the machine to forget? And what would you be brave enough to teach it instead? If tonight's episode left you feeling a little raw, good. That means your empathy wiring is intact. Drink some water, pet something small and alive, put on music that sounds like sunrise through cheap curtains. If you want to go deeper, try this. Next time you see a scary AI image, pause and flip the lens. Ask not what's wrong with the model, but what story is it compressing, and who told it first? That habit might save you from some lazy panic and lead you to better questions. Also, for anyone diving into image models, use safety modes. Be kind to yourself. Take breaks. And yeah, don't go spelunking for cryptids at 3 a.m. unless you brought snacks and a friend who texts, "Still alive?" every 15 minutes. I love you for choosing curiosity over comfort. Thanks for walking this dark hallway with me and not letting go of my sleeve. You've been utterly spellbinding.